story about the Olympic Games or whatever. Not necessarily good stories, but definitely stories. And so we were a storytelling people until the Dark Ages, until everything came crashing down. And when art came out of that time, suddenly it turned into wall decorations. Rich people would paint people to make wall decorations and make statues for the religious and paint ceilings, and that is all that artists were able to do. Whereas before he was able to decorate people's homes and make the stories part of their homes, suddenly it was a painting that you would hang or a statue in a church or whatever. We not only went into a dark ages of culture, we went into a dark ages of art. And all those things that you see in the museums are the very small attempts to bring art back through the only pathway that was available, the church and the rich, who would have them paint pictures of them and very often disregard them, put them up on walls. That was not what artists should be doing. It really was an awful time. I try to imagine myself living in Rembrandt's time, where turning somebody's face away from the front of the painting could lose me a commission. And in fact, even when I turned the faces to the front, what was I doing? Painting somebody's face. Big deal. Really, really big deal. What a crashing bore.
Let's make a photo.
Make it so we are now living in the true Renaissance. This is the true Renaissance, not that. That is the birthing of art again, but this is the Renaissance.
See, they were understanding how to do things, but they were not doing.
They weren't doing anything. What were they doing? It's like I look at the Mona Lisa and I say, I understand how somebody tries to make something of the Mona Lisa, but it is a boring piece of crap. Who gives a crap? I mean, no, I don't see a smile on her face. I'm sorry. There's no smile playing around her face, and that junk in the background looks like a goddamn swamp. It's just we try to make something out of it, but it's just crap. And, I'm not the type of person who is easily impressed by crap. I don't know why.
That's quite strange, I mean. Regarding what I told you about your way to... let's say shock the younger readers, and in 70 up to bring a lot of them to start drawing,
thinking.
This is not a smart question, but I'm confident you can make
I can find my way through it.
A smarter answer.
Don't you worry.
How do you feel considering the fact that so many people look at you like an icon, and some way as a teacher, even they don't have any lesson from you. I mean, lessons the one you gave them in 70.
But if you teach the lessons, then the lessons hold. I mean, if the lessons are good, they work for all time. There's no time limit to a good lesson.
That's because your comic book of the 70s are still on comic book schools.
Right. And well, not only that, they keep on reprinting them all the time and raising the price every time they reprint them.
I read what you read at the beginning of one of the DC Neal Adams stories. I mean, you thought that it was quite strange to think about the fact they were printing again
and again,
and asking people to pay more.
$75, I think, was the Green Lantern.
It will depend on the.
I find it an interesting cultural observation. Having nothing to do with me, the question that I am interested in is whether or not my stuff is lasting. That's the important thing to me. Is that if it's reprinted over and over again, the logic is that it's reprinted over and over again because it's a lasting document and it's lasting work. If it's
a lasting lesson, I'm quite sure.
Yes, and you have to understand that I started learning my lessons at a very, very young age, and I would have to say, pretty much a sponge to learn from other people. I had no you know, people have an ego, and of course everybody has an ego, and my ego in some ways was terrible, but it was to express itself. But when I ran into information or views that were different from mine, I was nothing but a sponge. My ego just went out the window, and all I was interested in was hearing other people's opinions and views and how to do things, and just to find out where thinking was and how it worked and why people did things. So for me, look, I've had a fucking wonderful life of learning and finding things. It happens even now. I mean, I had a meeting with my family today, and we were discussing what we're going to do at the next convention, and I learned more than I was able to express because they had observations that I had not seen, and so now I'm learning from them.
That is the case. You said I just put the ego.
Yeah.
Sitting there, just wait.
I have no,
but even if ego, it's not something bad at all. I mean,
well, ego.
Sometimes if you have it,
ego can get in the way. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people let their ego get in the way. I appreciate how other people feel, and I know it relates to me, but I think it relates to me one step beyond over here, where the ego maybe sits, but not directly to me. And I appreciate it, but what it really means is that I did good work, yes? And so I get that. And if anybody else does good work and people say they like that because they did good work, yes, that's good. That's a good thing. Is it something that easily turns my head, makes me impressed with it? I would rather have a comfortable conversation with somebody about something they're interested in than for them to talk about me. I like it because I think it's them expressing this thing they're feeling, and I like that.
Okay.
But outside of that, it means nothing really. It's just I don't have a big ego really.
And regarding the responsibility you have because of the fact that you impressed so many people, is it changing now the way you draw? I mean, you feel more responsible because
No, screw them.
No.
I don't care. Couldn't care less. My responsibility is to myself and to the work that I do, and I assume that anybody who is an artist has that same responsibility.
A lot of that is just answering the same way.
So there's
First,
I think we all share.
First me, then.
Yeah, I think we all share that sense of wanting to impress people by the work that we do, and hoping that people will be affected by it because that's why we're doing it. Once that happens, then you move on and do something else. I mean, I just did Batman Odyssey. There were a lot of people that criticized it, but in the end, I was very, very happy. And I have people talking to me all the time when I go to conventions, and not the ones that are critical of it, because even the ones that are critical of it, they'll ask me a question. I'll go, "So you didn't like it? Now you were listening to the internet, right? Well, why don't we talk? Why don't we talk about it? Did you read the 13th chapter? No. Well, if you read a book and somebody presented a book to you, it had 13 chapters, and you didn't read the 13th chapter, and you had a negative view of what the book was about, how could you have a negative view without reading the last chapters?
I mean,
you understand what I'm saying?
If you are talking about the art, I mean, probably there is no difference between the first 12 and the last one. But if we are talking about a story that is not ended, it didn't came to an end. How? If it didn't arrive at the end.
Well, but you see, in that comic book, and I tend to do new things all the time, thing to remember. In that series of books, I told people, I'm going to do a book. And it's going to have 12 chapters. I didn't realize it was going to have 13 chapters, but I couldn't fit it into the last book. I said, look, I'm writing a book. It's got 12 chapters. You're not going to know what the book is about until you read all 12 chapters. It's not a series of stories. It's like Ulysses. It's like any story.
Talking about people who needed to tell stories to people. That's all matters. I mean,
so I tried to tell people that that's what it was. The shocking thing to some people was that's what it was, and they were like, well, he may have said that, but I don't understand the first book. You don't understand it. You know what? You just so what I did was a book in 13 chapters. That's the way it will be looked at in the future, because people will get their heads together and they'll think about it and they go, oh yeah, I guess that's true. And then when they finally read the 13th chapter, they go, oh my God. And then they have to go back and read the whole thing all over again, because all that stuff was there to get to the 13th chapter, unless you paid attention to it. We talked about hydrogen power. We talked about a person's approach to life and death, the death penalty. We talked about all these things, major issues, and all you were doing was reading a comic book. There's a moment where you have to wake up. I did a thing, a story I did for the Spectre early on. Was a story called "Stop That Kid Before He Wrecks the World." Rather long title. And it was about a creature from outer space who entered a little boy and started to commit all these disasters. And the Spectre tried to stop him, but he had to stop all these disasters before he could stop the kid. And in the end, he was faced with the decision of, if he tried to withdraw this creature from the little boy would die. So now the little boy was the sacrificial lamb and he couldn't. And the kid could do terrible things, and only the Spectre could undo them. So Corrigan, his alter ego, was saying, look, just face it, you're going to have to kill the boy. That's the only choice. And so he said, and he realized that was in fact the case, because the power that this kid had was so great that he would have to keep after him all his life. And so he had to make that choice, right? And there's the child. And so he says, no, I'm not going to kill the boy. If I have to spend the rest of eternity just stopping what he does, that's what I'll do. I will not kill the boy.
It's like the famous question, what if you had the chance to kill Hitler when it was a boy?
See, it's a slightly different question.
Well,
it's a slightly different question. The point is that his moral backbone was based on the concept that he would sacrifice anything not to destroy his own. And that was the plan of this creature. His creature was to take the greatest good on earth, which at that time was the Spectre, corrupt him, and then destroy the world through corruption. And Spectre said, no, I will
follow my idea up to the end. Yeah,
whatever it is, whatever it takes. If I have to spend my whole life, my whole existence undoing what he does, I will not. Well, to me, that was a comic book worth reading. That's a moral lesson. And I think in many ways that's the end lesson of that is what I did with Batman. Batman at the 13th issue seems to kill the character, but he doesn't. He actually gives him a new life. And Robin, who doubts him at a certain point, thinks that he has killed him.
He's going to lose
control. Right. And Batman says, showbiz, kid. It's just showbiz. And of course, and he said, I told you I would never kill anybody. You think if I give you my word that I'm going to go back on it? Never. So he went through this whole process to come to the same place.
Okay.
Good story. Good idea. I like that.
Okay.
If I have ego, that's where it is.
Let's stop it. So I will make more little